KRFC. Fort Collins, welcome to the newly renamed Emerging Artist Showcase. Vincent as your host and tech this evening. This pre-recorded show includes a variety of guests. We will start the show with Harris Elementary School students Murphy and Nico interviewing local author Teresa Funke, followed by the very talented and very unique sounding Northern Colorado Cello Choir, led by Beth Wells. Following that, I spoke with sportscaster TJ Frasco about some exciting upcoming developments with his collaboration involving Poudre School District Channel 10. And we finish up the hour with accordionist Nicholas Bischof of Musica here in Fort Collins. Wanted to first mention an exciting ongoing collaboration happening right here in Old Town, the Acoustic Showcase Series at the Downtown Artery, 252 Linden Street. Page 7 of the December issue of Scene Magazine has an article. Scene Magazine publisher Michael Moakler, Amy Bradley, and all the fine folks at the Downtown Artery, along with KRFC, are all working together to bring you the finest of rising talent in Fort Collins and along Colorado's Northern Front Range. Upcoming this Friday, singer-songwriter Amanda Michaels, along with indie rock group Savage Cabbage, Nathan Sonnenberg, Colin Orr, and Keaton Nelesny will all perform. Music starts at 7:30 p.m. 252 Linden Street in Old Town, just past the Sunset Event Center and up the stairs, the epicenter of artistic culture right here in Fort Collins, Colorado. So here we go, starting with Murphy and Nico. This is the Emerging Artist Showcase on KRFC 88.9 FM.
Hi, my name is Nico.
And my name is Murphy.
And we're here at Harris Bilingual Elementary School in Fort Collins, Colorado to interview Teresa Funke.
Teresa Funke wrote the Homefront Heroes series, which is about kids and what was happening to them during World War II.
And now we're going to start the interview. Hi, my name is Nico.
And my name is Murphy.
And we're here to interview Teresa Funke. To start off, I have my first question. In any of your books, do you have anything about the concentration camps of World War II?
That's a really good question. So all my books are about World War II, and they're all for middle grade readers. So mostly it's 8 to 12-year-olds who are reading my books. It's called the Homefront Heroes series. And all my books are set in America. So the home front means the American home front. That's where we lived during the war. So the concentration camps were in Europe. They were part of Hitler's campaign to take care of all of the Jews in Germany. He wanted to actually round up all of the Jews in Germany and put them into camps. And 10 million Jews he was hoping to round up. And some of them were pretty awful camps, and a lot of them were death camps, where a lot of the people who were sent there actually wound up dying. So it was terrible. I mean, we lost 6 million Jewish people during World War II in the concentration camps. But because that was in Europe, my stories take place in America, so I don't have any concentration camp stories. But if you read Wave Me Goodbye, in that story, the girl is a Jewish girl from the Bronx. That's in New York. And she does have a woman come to live with her who is escaping the Holocaust in Germany. So she had to leave her husband and her little son behind. And so she's called a refugee. So the Jews who got out of Germany in time and did not get put into the camps, and they came to America, were called refugees. And she's living with the character in my book. So you get to learn about the Holocaust, but my books aren't set in the camps. That's a really good question.
Okay, and who inspires you to write a book?
For these books, I was actually sent out to interview a man. His name was Clint Hackenstad, and I was working for a PBS station on TV. And I was sent out to interview him. He was a World War II veteran who had been sent to some really terrible prison camps in Japan and China. And he's the first person I got to talk to about the war. And so that was my very first book, which is called Remember Wake, and it's a novel. It's for grown-ups, and teenagers read it too. And then because of that book, I got to start meeting all these really cool people who were alive during World War II. And I decided to write a series of books about kids during the war because I was going to visit fifth grade classrooms with kids like you. And all the kids I was talking to were really interested in World War II. And they wanted to know more about the war. So a fifth grade student said to me, Mrs. Funke, why don't you write some stories about World War II for kids? And I thought that was a great idea. So every one of my books is based on a real person that I interviewed who was a kid during the war. And the first lady in doing my part was actually a kindergarten teacher in Greeley, and she taught for 35 years. Her name was Shirley Brand. And so she inspired the first book, and then each of the other books is based on somebody that I talked to that actually was a child during the war, that actually lived through the experiences that you read in my books. So they're each inspired by a totally separate person, which is really cool, but all real people.
So what authors have mentored you during your writing career?
I've been really lucky because when I started writing, I met a lot of writers here in Fort Collins, and we formed a writers group. And so every other Tuesday night we would get together and we would read each other's work and critique each other's work. And so a lot of Fort Collins writers were in my group over the years, and I got to work with them. And so they would read my work and tell me what was right and wrong with it, and I would read their work and tell them what I thought. And sometimes it was good. Sometimes they said, this is great. You don't need to do anything. It's perfect. But usually they said lots of changes for me to make. And sometimes it was really hard to hear because sometimes I was disappointed. I wanted the work to be just right. And then my writing friends would tell me, no, you need to work on it a little bit more. So I've been really lucky to have a lot of writers as friends that were in my writers group, but I never took any classes from any famous writers or anything like that. They've all become the friends that I knew from that writers group. Some of them you guys know, and they are writers in the Fort Collins community now, so it's really cool.
Which one of your books are you most proud of?
I get asked that question a lot, and that's a really good question. So I have 3 children, and if you ask a writer which one of their books they like best, it's kind of like asking which one of your children do you like best. So I like all my books for different reasons. They were all hard, and they were all fun to write in different ways. And so I don't have a favorite book because each of them I felt really strongly about, really happy about when I was writing it. And since they're all based on real people, it would be kind of like choosing which person I liked best, and I liked everybody that I interviewed. So while I'm working on a book, that one's my favorite, because I have to love it when I'm writing it. But when I look back at all of my books, I'm really proud of all of them, so I don't have one book that is my favorite. But I love it when people come up to me and tell me what their favorite is of my books, and people will do that all the time. They'll come up and say, oh, I read all of your books and my favorite one is this, and I love to hear why it was their favorite book. That's really fun as a writer.
Why did you write about World War II?
Why did I write about World War II? That is a really good question, too. So I was in college, and I was studying history because it was my very favorite subject. And the guy that I was sent out to interview, the guy that's named Clint that I was telling you about, his story was so amazing to me that I couldn't believe that somebody could survive such a terrible experience in the war. And I wanted to know more. And so I started to talk to the other people that he knew, his friends, about what they'd gone through during the war. And then from that book, I wrote my second book, which is about women during World War II, partly because his wife was so interesting. And I thought, I wonder what happened to his wife during the war. So I got to go back and talk to her and a bunch of the other women about what happened during World War II. And then I started writing the children's books. So I've just kind of been stuck in World War II for a while because it's such an interesting time period. So there were 50 countries involved in that war, and 70 million people died. So it was a big, big part of our human history, and there's so many stories that we haven't told. So I just keep writing about it because there's so many really cool stories to tell still.
When did you decide you wanted to be an author?
I was actually in 5th grade, like you guys. And have you ever had an experience that was really embarrassing, but at the same time it also turned out to be a really good thing? So when I was in 5th grade, I had a teacher who gave me an assignment to write a poem. And for some reason, I just really wanted to get this poem right. And I stayed up late past my bedtime, and my mom yelled at me, and she was like, you need to go to bed. And I said, no, I have to get this poem right. And it was just really important to me. So maybe for you it was a science project or a PE unit that was coming up that you wanted to do really well with, but for me it was this poem. And then when I turned in the poem, the teacher called me up in front of the whole class and she said, "You did not write this poem. No student could write a poem this good. You must have copied it out of a book and you didn't do it yourself. So you take it back and you write it yourself or I'm not giving you a grade." And I was really embarrassed and my face turned red and I was walking to my desk with my head down and I could hear kids laughing at me and I heard one kid say, "You cheated." And I was like, "No, I didn't cheat." So I was really embarrassed. But at the same time, I was also really excited because I was thinking to myself, wow, I must be a really good writer. So that's when I got interested in writing. And from then on, I wrote all the way through junior high and high school. And I had lots of teachers who encouraged me to write because I was happy that I'd found something that I was good at.
How did you get the ideas for your book?
So how did I get my idea for the children's books? Like I said, I was in that classroom and that girl said to me, "Why don't you write something for kids?" And I'd never thought about writing for children before. I thought I was going to write all my books for adults. But as soon as she said that, I thought, she's right. Kids need to know more about World War II, and I think they would like to read about this time period because it's so interesting. So because of what she said, I immediately came up with the idea for the series, the Homefront Heroes series, and I thought of 4 books right away that I wanted to do. And so the books in the series are Doing My Part, which is about a girl working in a war factory in Illinois, and then the No-No Boys is a boy who's living in the Japanese internment camps during the war, and V for Victory is a Mexican-American boy who's working in his family's store, and that one's actually based on my uncle, so that one's fun for me. And then Wave Me Goodbye is a Jewish girl in the Bronx, and she befriends an English boy who was sent away from London to get away from the bombing. And then there's 2 or 3 more books that I want to write. I'm working on a Pearl Harbor book, and then I'd like to write a book about an African-American boy in the South, and I might do one about the Hopi code talkers. The Hopis were a Native American tribe, and they helped develop one of the codes that helped us win the war. So it all came because that girl made that suggestion, "Why don't you write something for us?" Because I'd never thought about writing for kids before.
What type of books do you like to read?
I love to read historical fiction. It's always been my favorite ever since I was a little kid. And mostly when I get to read books for fun, I read historical fiction. And I read a lot of World War II historical fiction because that's what I write about. But I love to read about other eras too. Like I love the Civil War and I love English history. But I think writers should always read books that are similar to the books they want to write. So if you want to write a fantasy story, you should be reading fantasy. And if you want to write a science fiction story, you should read science fiction. Because when you read those books, you learn what makes a good story, and you understand, why do I like this story, or why do I think it's boring, and you start to figure out what a good writer does. So whatever you like to write, whether that's maybe you like to write humor books or comic books, then you need to be reading those kinds of books so that your writing becomes as good as those authors, right?
How are you connected to World War II?
So I'm connected to the war because of my books and because of the research I did when I was in college. But actually, what's really interesting is a lot of people think that it started from my own family, that maybe I had family members who fought in the war, but I didn't. Neither of my grandfathers fought in the war. My grandmother did work in a war factory for a little while, but I didn't know that until I was an adult. So a lot of people think, oh, you must be interested in World War II because your family was a part of it. But it wasn't. It was just all of my interest from school and from that job that I had.
How long does it take for you to write a book?
The first book that I wrote, Remember Awake, was a novel, and it was for adults, and I didn't know how to write a book then. So it took me about 7 years to write that book and research it and rewrite it, and then it took another 3 years to get it published. So it was a 10-year process. And then my second book, Dancing in Combat Boots, which is the women's stories from World War II, that was 8 years. But then with my children's books, I knew a lot about the war by then, and the children's books were shorter. So I can write one of the children's books in about a year from when I start it to when it's completely done.
What advice would you give to someone who would like a book published?
Well, if you would like to publish a book, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have written the very best book that you can, because the publishing industry only works if the book is good, because then people talk about it and they want to recommend it to other people. So a lot of times people will write something and they'll just immediately send it out and it doesn't get picked up by the publishing industry. So the best thing you can do is to get a lot of feedback on your writing. So for you guys, that might be a teacher, it might be a parent, it might be your friends that are telling you honestly what parts of your stories are good and what parts are maybe a little bit slow. So that's the most important thing, is to write the very best book that you can, or it's not going to get published. And so you don't want to skip that step of having people help you with the writing. And then from there on out, you can go a lot of different routes to publish a book now. You can do it yourself, or you can work with a publishing house, with an editor and an agent. And there's even a lot of great places for young writers to submit their work now, especially teenage writers, where you can get published online, or you can get published in what's called an anthology, which is where they put all your stories together and they publish it like a book. So lots of options for publishing now, even for young people. It's really fun.
I think that's all the questions. Once again, thank you for letting us interview you. You have been listening to the interview of Teresa Funke that wrote the Homefront Heroes series, and thanks again.
This is Nico
and Murphy
for KRFC, and we're signing off.
I want to thank very much Teresa Funke for being interviewed by Nico and Murphy. Nico and Murphy will be also interviewing Laura Riesel, who is another fantastic local author, and that interview will air next week right here on the Emerging Artist Showcase. Ongoing, Murphy and Nico will be mentored to continue with their interviewing. They're just doing a fantastic job, and they're also going to be doing some emceeing, hopefully, at some upcoming events as well. So really thrilled to have Nico and Murphy from Harris Elementary School, part of the Emerging Artist Showcase show right here on KRFC 88.9 FM. The Northern Colorado Cello Choir is just an amazing collection of 8 cellists, and they are led by Beth Wells, and they were they were rehearsing yesterday, and we recorded them out there, and we're gonna play that for you right now. We are here with Beth Wells, director of the Northern Colorado Cello Choir. Just had a wonderful rehearsal here, and we're going to talk about kind of the origins and welcome you to the radio here. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Good to be here. I just wanted to let you all know how this group got started. We are a group that started from Catherine Azari's studio, cello studio. She's a longtime cellist in Fort Collins, and several of her students that are in the group right now wanted a cello choir, so she just took her students and made a cello choir. It became something that she felt was getting too big for her, so she contacted me. I had just retired from Rocky Mountain High School orchestras and said, would I like to direct a couple of pieces on their recital? So I did, and then we just kind of moved into maybe me taking it over. And she actually named it the Northern Colorado Cello Choir. And I went along with that, and bada bing, we got started.
And we should mention there are 8 cellos involved in this, which is really probably a really good number to have.
8 cellos is a good number to have. I wouldn't want to have less than that. In the future, I might invite 2 to 4 more for a total of 12.
So having formed, Beth, the Northern Colorado Cello Choir, real important to look for performances where you can kind of share this music with the community.
After their recital in April, I thought it was so astounding, such an astounding sound. I actually had someone record them that I contacted the Colorado Music Educators Association and asked them, is there a place for a community group? And lo and behold, they made a new category, community groups, for the Colorado Music Educators Conference in January in Colorado Springs. So I said, okay, great. So I sent a tape in, and we were selected to go. So that was a big motivator in getting us to find a lot of variety of repertoire for our performance. And then we were contacted again and said we would be able to play a cameo performance, which would be playing in a lobby as the attendees walk through the different venues. And so it would be kind of like background music, so we could play a little bit more. So that was my motivation to find even more music. So right now we have about 18 pieces.
Wow, that's a lot of pieces. Congratulations, by the way, because being selected for the CMEA is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and what's really interesting is this is a group of kids who come from different high schools around Northern Colorado, but I am not a teacher in a school anymore. So this is what's unique about this group. We are not part of a school choir, school cello section, but we come together every Sunday, twice a month, to play all this repertoire. And I'm not sure if there's anything like that in the state. There might be, but they commit to it just like you would commit to Arsenal soccer or basketball. And they are committed. I mean, they've made a commitment, and I'm directing them, and we're trying to get them to listen differently. I do have an assistant director. It's Bob Kreutz from Thompson Valley High School. And he's a violinist, and he is directing one of our pieces at CMEA, the Adagio for Strings by Barber.
It's really impressive that aside from all of the other things they have going on, schoolwork and then the other musical things that they're doing, to come together with students from different parts of the region here to learn all of these other pieces.
It is, and I think I heard some of them saying it's different music than their orchestra music, and being an orchestra director for so long, I know what they're talking about. This music is completely new, especially for a cellist who's playing up high on the fingerboard, playing in the treble clef. So they are playing in treble clef, they're playing in alto clef, and they're playing in bass clef. And those musicians who are out there know what I'm talking about, and especially those cellists out there who play mostly in bass clef. These guys are going up high as if they're a violinist. And so that's really what they want, that challenge. They love it. And I've also noticed that, they came together and they didn't really know each other. This was in September. And finally, the last couple of rehearsals, they're starting to be a little more social with each other, because you put yourself out there playing alone on a part, and for a cellist that's odd, because you usually play in a cello section where you're playing all the same music, but now some of you might be playing up high and some of you may be covering the bass part, and we just have to come together and really listen to our sound. And I would like to not conduct them. I would really like them to hear it on their own and move on their own.
And it's really headed that way.
It is headed that way. Today especially was good because I didn't conduct them. There was nothing else they could do. I was actually playing today.
are here with 4 of the members of the Northern Colorado Cello Choir. I'm going to have you introduce yourselves.
Elisa Peterson.
I'm Cole Azule.
I'm Karina Baraka.
I'm Hannah Phipps.
Tell us what it's been like being a part of this choir. This very exciting sound we have going here.
I'm Karina. You get to meet a lot of people from around Fort Collins that you would typically not meet, which is really cool. And you get some harder music that you might not get at your school orchestra, and it's a different feel than the private lessons because you have to work off each other.
The cello really seems like the ideal instrument for what you're doing because it has such an incredible range. Have you comment on that?
I'm Elisa, and I think it's neat because we can play a lot of different kinds of music, like genres, on the same instrument, whereas normally it'd be composed differently, like arrangements, which is a lot of fun since we can do ragtime, marches, classical, baroque, so...
My understanding is typically with the cello in an orchestra, there's a limited range as far as kind of what is brought your way musically with all of the other instruments accompanying you. So in this environment here, you're really covering a wide swath of the range of the cello. It's really put to use more. And we're going to have Hannah comment on that.
Well, yeah, it's really cool because like in our normal orchestra, you're usually playing an accompaniment part instead of the melody, and so now you get to do that, and there's a lot more variety, like Elisa said, and you get to play a lot of different types and part.
So Cole, you have a very exciting situation coming up with a performance that you're all going to be heading to before too long here.
I believe that's on January 24th. It's in Colorado Springs, and we're playing at CMEA, and it's going to be really awesome.
And the CMEA is?
It's the Colorado Music Educators Association.
And that's a big deal. You all are heading to that. Congratulations, by the way.
This is going to be like one of the first performances, at least this year, with new people, where we actually get to play for people and they'll get to know us more, which is going to be awesome.
I think what's really exciting is it's bringing an awareness to the beauty of the cello. It's such a unique instrument. It can do things that other instruments just can't do range-wise. So I think that's really exciting.
It's kind of nice because she actually started me out on cello, and she was a teacher at Rocky for a long time. And now I get to see her a bunch, and it's just really cool that I get to play in a really high-quality ensemble.
Beth Wells is a big supporter of what you all are doing here. Thank you all for being a part of this choir. It's really great to get to know it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
places, Beth, where you are coming across this music which is specifically written for cello choirs.
Yes, some of it is specifically written for cello choir, or 3-part, 4-part, 5-part, 6-part, 7-part, 8-part. We can always double if it's a quartet. That's what we do mostly. But I have found so many sites where a cello teacher has written or arranged music for his cello students for a cello choir. And one piece we're playing is called Jelasic March by Johann Strauss Sr., and I found that one from a cello teacher who lives in Croatia. And I found it on YouTube, and then I found the music had been published by Ovation Press. It was such a gold mine. My husband, Tom Bittinger, also has arranged some things for us. Scott Joplin, The Entertainer. We've done When I'm 64, Beatles. And so trying to get a variety. We also have some Bach Prelude and Fugue. We have some Telemann sonatas. We have a Renaissance vocal piece called El Grillo, the cricket, which is tons of fun. So just a lot of variety. I think that's why the kids like it so much. It's not the same stuff. And it is, I think it's real quality. And one of the kids said they get to have the melody more, but also they get to play some extremely exciting rhythms. In the La Calacita is a Argentinian tango, so there's some real fun rhythms in that.
Because when you bring in other instruments, as normally you do with the cello is not necessarily the instrument that is getting those interesting melodies.
Right. It's usually probably the violins are getting that. Or if you're in a full orchestra, it might be the woodwinds are getting it. But sometimes cellos in an orchestra do get the get the rhythms, but they don't get the melodies. So now we're all, getting it. And also, I try and put members on different parts. Like not the same people play the first part and the same people play the fourth part. I'm trying to rotate it around so everybody gets experience playing the high stuff and the low stuff. It is challenging for all of them, and they have all improved. I can't wait to hear what they sound like at CMEA.
I'm thinking, Beth, that something that may really attract people initially considering playing the cello is the wide range of the moods and the tones that you can get with the cello.
The cello has such a wide range, probably the most of all the string instruments of the string family. So you can play very low on the C string, very dark, rich sound, accompanying someone or not, or it can go up into the higher register and you can play in a very singing way like an alto or a soprano voice. It can be very lovely with a legato sound, or it can be very choppy and give you good rhythm. It's so versatile, and of course that's why I love it.
People I mention this choir to are kind of astonished that such a thing exists, and it's a really exciting sound that you're bringing forth here in Northern Colorado.
I think so too. As a matter of fact, I just was talking to someone who wanted a duo for a Christmas party, and she didn't think it would be okay for two cellos to play together like they can't play melody. And I was like, well, we've come a long way. We could play melody. So it's exciting that we can showcase this group of sort of a bass clef instrument playing as an ensemble that's very complete and very rich and exciting. And the sound is amazing. The Forêt Pavane. It is a most beautiful sound. Just close your eyes and relax. It's beautiful.
It's exciting, these rising young artists being exposed to this, and it's fun to think about what they might do as they get a little older and how they want to spread the knowledge of what this instrument can do as well.
I hope it propels them in whatever way is good for them. If it propels them into being a better cellist, great, or I want to go into music as a career, or I want to be a music consumer where I can go and listen to great pieces of music. That is my goal.
And when is the CMEA?
CMEA is January 24th at Broadmoor Hotel. We'll be playing at 8:30 in the morning in the main ballroom.
Great things happening here with the Northern Colorado Cello Choir. I want to thank very much Beth Wells for being here on KRFC.
Thank you, Vincent, for having me.
Wow. I'd like to thank very much Beth Wells and the entire Northern Colorado Cello Choir. Just fantastic sounds coming from them. The songs that we heard at this recent rehearsal this past weekend, we heard the 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky, The Entertainer by Joplin, Liberty Bell March by Sousa, Pavane by Farr, and we finished up with 3 Spanish pieces by Kelly. You are listening to the Emerging Artist Showcase on KRFC 88.9 FM. Vincent as your host and tech this evening. Jill Cush will return next week as sound technician. Sportscaster TJ Frasco stopped by the Green Studio this past weekend to talk about some exciting developments in partnership with Poudre School District, Channel 10. And we're going to hear that interview right now. We are here in the Green Studio at KRFC with TJ Frasco, recent high school graduate. Hello, TJ.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a little while since you've been in here. Now, the last time you were in this Green Studio, you were with
Will Denton.
With Will Denton. How is Will doing?
He's doing good. We've tried to find some time to do a broadcast, but it's just hard to find some time. You know, we're both busy, but yeah, he's doing good.
Now, the last time you were here, you were speaking about the Front Range Sports Radio, and there is a Facebook page for that.
There is, yeah, Front Range Sports Radio on Facebook.
Now, something really exciting has developed since your last visit here, and it kind of emanated from you being a baseball player, and this is involving Poudre School District Channel 10.
Yeah, it's called NFHS. It stands for the National Federation of High School, and it's basically an umbrella of high school sporting events, and underneath that is a broadcasting gig. Now, it's not NBC, it's nothing too big, but basically NFHS is a broadcasting program that covers all the high school sporting events around the nation, but in our case it covers the Fort Collins 5A schools, and it's a neat opportunity for me because, you know, it is a step up from Front Range Sports Radio, but it's a lot of fun. I really like it.
It's nice that you've had that prior experience where you were with Front Range Sports Radio, and you're doing a similar process to what you're doing now with the nfhsnetwork.com/events.
Yeah. For Front Range, you know, I basically started as the technical producer, moved to color, then to play-by-play, and you know, you start that cycle all over again with a new program. And so for NFHS, right now I'm the technical producer, and you hope to make progress with that and, you know, start from the bottom and hope it goes somewhere.
I think it's safe to say that this is groundbreaking, especially for Fort Collins. We haven't had anything like this, and your connection now with Herb Saperson and Matt Gold over at Channel 10 and the other gentlemen involved in this is really making this possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, Channel 10 has a huge part in it, and really, there's equipment that Channel 10 allows us to use that really, you know, the broadcast wouldn't be possible without it.
These are live broadcasts.
Yeah.
That's extremely exciting. Now, who are the other individuals helping you out with this?
So, Randy McCoy is the color commentator, and he does some technical producing as well. David Haas is the play-by-play, and then we have Lawrence on the camera. And so we have a crew right in front of us that really does a good job.
It's got to be a surreal experience. You've
it
wanted
is.
something like this for some time.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. It's so surreal because once I got up there for the first time, you know, looking down on the court instead of, you know, it's a different experience, but man, is it fun.
So you had your first game this past Monday.
Yeah, Monday the 2nd.
Live in the
Rocky Gym, yeah.
In the Rocky Gym.
Yep. You know, the setup is pretty simple, although, you know, whenever it's technology, you can have a little snafu, but you get up there, you have table, laptops, microphones, cameras, and once you get all set up, it's a really cool system to watch come together, but once you go live, man, it's all business.
There's a lot of potentiality here, a lot of different sporting events happening in the high schools, and you specifically were doing a basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be easy to announce a game live.
I'm sure it isn't, no. In fact, one of the very first broadcasts I did was a basketball game for Florida and Georgia, and, I mean...
Now, this was not live.
This was Front Range Radio.
Right.
So
you were basically give the setup of what was happening there.
Yeah, and the game just moves quickly. You have to be able to think on your feet.
No, let's focus on this for a moment, because just so folks understand, you were watching a game on cable as it was happening live, and you were doing an audio broadcast for people to listen to.
Right. Front Range Radio was all done from our basement. We started a studio, we invested some money, and sure enough, it took off. And instead of being there live, you're just watching it on TV. You have someone doing it with you, because it's a lot easier to have somebody do it with you, for sure. It's a different setup, but it works.
That's a cool concept, too, because someone could have the game on cable, turn down the audio from the cable station, and be tuned into you giving your announcing.
Yeah, many people have told me that they did that. It's kind of cool.
We are here with TJ Frasco, a recent local high school graduate who is now working over at Channel 10 as part of the NFHS network. And their site is nfhsnetwork.com/events, and that's where you can find the live broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And TJ, you have one upcoming.
We do, yeah. December 12th, Thunder Ridge versus Fossil Ridge. That'll be a really good game. Those are two really, really good teams. Lots of juniors and seniors in the starting lineup, so I'm excited for that one.
And again, this is basketball that you're focusing on for now.
Yeah, basketball season has just begun, and it'll be a fun season for sure.
We're really looking forward to these upcoming events that you're going to be working on, and 2 to 3 times a week is really the frequency that we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as much as 2 to 3 times a week. It's fun to get out there every time. That's one of those things, you get excited the first time, and you think you'll get used to the experience, but man, once you get out there, it's just fun each and every time.
Very exciting. TJ, thanks for coming by, and we're definitely going to be looking for more updates from you.
Yeah, well, thanks so much.
Accordionist Nicholas Bischof from Philomusica here in Fort Collins paid his first visit to CARE FC earlier today. I would like to thank new CARE FC volunteers Werner and Heather for introducing Nicholas to the Emerging Artist Showcase. We are now joined in the Green Studio by Nicholas Bischof. Hello, Nicholas.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well. It's great to have you in the studio. This is your very first time visiting CARE FC.
Mm-hmm.
You are with Philomusica, and which is a musical playground for all ages here in Fort Collins. Actually, let's start by mentioning the website.
Okay, that's www.philomusica.com. It's kind of a mouthful to say, but it's PHILOMUSICA.com.
We're now going to hear Lucy e Hombre. This is Nicholas Bischof. We're here on the Emerging Artist Showcase, and Nicholas is going to go from an Italian song that we just heard to a French song, Sous les cils de Paris, which means under Paris skies. More songs and conversation with Nicholas Bischof can be found on the Facebook page Rising Artist Mentorship, starting tomorrow. This program is ongoing and highlights the best of local rising talent. You can like the Facebook page Rising Artist Mentorship to learn more. Next week on the Emerging Artist Showcase, first-time guest, vocalist Brianna Davis. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Andy B. is coming up next.